welcome back to the Leaders of Leaders podcast. And I'm here again with Mark Carter, who's been on before. G'day, Mark.
Hey, mate, how are you?
Good, mate. So, Mark, I put up a post on LinkedIn recently talking about how, the footy season's back and these teams have been training since before Christmas. The pre-season training and training every day. And then throughout the season, they might train, Tuesday to Thursday, play on the weekend, and then train again the next week. And the whole idea of the post was, in business, it's we do more than we train, and there's no real consistency to that training. And your comment was that you've got a different perspective on how training is in business. So let's have a chat.
Yeah, man, cool.
Where do you see it different?
Oh, mate, I think the footy season's alive and well, and everybody's pumped up about that.
Yeah.
I'm not a mad footy nut by any stretch of the imagination. I used to be a bit of a sports nut. I played some semi-pro football as a kid, so I kind of understand the high-intensity sports training kind of mentality and, 5 days a week, games on the weekend, training sessions before school, after school. I understand all that.
Yep.
But it's interesting when you put that post up because they're two complete different worlds with two completely different mindsets that are trying to achieve the same thing, but are very, very far away from getting it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the kind of philosophy you put up there kind of comes from that old Kobe Bryant model, and if we take, elite athletes train continuously for performance, that's all that 100%, every single facet of their life is to make sure they can perform.
Yeah.
Most professionals are kind of expected to perform without a structured preparation for performance itself. It's like, turn up, give us your best crack, and then we're going to evaluate you on that without helping you one single bit.
Yeah.
And as well, like athletes understand that high performance is not accidental.
Yeah.
It's built through deliberate training, coaching, recovery, and continuous feedback. You look at what happened in the Winter Olympics. Those people have trained for 4 years for one moment.
And that moment is what, 30 seconds?
30 seconds, maybe a minute. And you think, I've gone to do me aerial and I've stacked it.
Yeah.
So what's that? 1,400 days has just gone down the drain because I couldn't land it. Now, the absolute dedication to that one moment is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The rewards are just as big. But in contrast, corporate and kind of healthcare world often assumes that once someone has obtained the qualification, that can simply sustain that peak performance indefinitely. And you've got to be out of your right mind if you think that's the case.
Yeah.
The fundamental assumption is flawed on every level.
Well, you just got to look at, someone who's done their first aid certificate. A couple of years ago, it was the compressions weren't necessary. And now they're back in, they're necessary again now. So it's like even those minor things like that over the space of a couple of years.
Yeah, and you think of like everybody. So if you take the trajectory of someone going through a career, like they go to school, they go to university, they get another level of education, then they're thrust into the working world or wherever that is, healthcare, corporate, wherever it is, trade. In the trade, they learn the skills and they graduate. In uni, you learn the knowledge and then you're expected to apply that knowledge into real world situations. But what happens after that? Where's the onus on then how do we ensure that that person is absolutely performing? Where does that sit? Is it on the individual? Is it on the organization? Is it a mixture of both? And I think that's where we have to take a completely different mindset. And I mean completely different. Because if you look at the way the world is working right now, everybody is literally on the rivet. They are. If anybody turns out and goes, I'm absolutely killing it at work and I feel 100% every single day, you're probably lying to yourself in some facet or you're trying to hide some area. Now, if you look at the two models of performance, you take the elite athlete model, for example, daily structured performance training. They get coaches for skills, mindset, strength, and recovery, the constant performance reviews and feedback. They get load management, which I think is, I still struggle with the idea of load management. If you train 4 days a week and play for 90 minutes on the weekend, that we have to manage your load.
Yeah.
So there's huge rest periods between high performance events. Now, I'm not saying it's bad or right or wrong, but you just think about it in that capacity. Training's curated, the recovery's treated as essential to the performance, not you can recover on the weekend. And everything they do is data driven. It's performance monitored. It's not a random coach goes, oh, you look like you performed pretty good. I think you ran 3Ks this game. AFL players run what, between 10 to 12 kilometers a game?
Yeah.
at between 80 to 85% intensity. That's more intense than a marathon runner, and it's at high levels of speed and intensity. And they do that at training 3-4 days a week. And
Yeah.
then at a weekend, even high levels. You look at professional cyclists, those guys are just nuts.
Mm.
They will do up to 25,000 kilometers in a year. And you're
Yeah.
like, these guys are panning it. Well, if you take like the workforce or say a healthcare model, you qualified once and you maybe gone back and done a couple more, and then it's followed by continuous work. You have a limited structure for coaching or development. It's depending on the organization sees the value in it, or it's really catered to whatever the model that can deliver the lowest cost for the most efficiency. It's annual or infrequent performance reviews.
Yep.
You have a continuous workload with minimal load management. Can you imagine going, okay, you're the surgeon today, you may be working a bit tough, we're going to load manage you out so you only have one surgery for the next month and you can recover. Good luck with that idea.
Yeah.
You're an orthopedic surgeon, you got 5 hips. You're on
In one
call.
day.
And that's the deal, that's the load. And tomorrow you're going to do it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Recovery is often seen as optional or secondary or sometimes belittled or crucified in these professions.
Mm.
And there's no real-time data on workforce well-being or performance, and it just doesn't work. There's no insight. A well-being survey once every 3 months, 6 months. Who gives a rip? It doesn't tell you anything of what is the causative factors in time prior to that happening.
Yeah.
So the way I look at this is if you took an elite athlete model and you flipped it to the real world and you make it acceptable and you make it accessible and you make it understandable and non-judgmental, people will get a greater understanding of the workforce they have for them, understand load management, understand when those fatigue periods are coming, and actually probably get better efficient healthcare.
Yeah.
And people think, oh, that's unachievable. Well, I'm going to rock your world right now. It's not unachievable, and it
Mm.
actually can be done. And the platform we've built, we ask 4 simple questions. How did you sleep today? How did you eat yesterday? How well do you emotionally feel? And how well do you physically feel? Now, people think, oh, that's, pretty basic questions. But put those 4 indices against each other and benchmark them against world standards.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself, if you've got a hospital of 500 or 600 staff there on a daily basis, and you walk in, you go, we've had 20 people off sick today. Okay, what's my answer to that? Do I get any insight? Nah. Do I have any change in what could happen tomorrow? Zero. What's my best worst case scenario? I could get a survey out and maybe half of them will fill it in and maybe my staff can act on it in time. But by that stage, we've probably had 60, 40, 100 sick calls in that 2-3 months.
Yeah.
Absolutely rational. However, if you take something just as simple as sleep, Brett, and you go, okay, for nurses, which the platform's built for, today, 65% of the 500 staff had less than 5 hours sleep. I bet as an exec, you're making a lot, you're thinking about in the back of your mind going, Jesus, my staff are really tired.
Mm.
And you add that to, well, half of them only ate really well yesterday, so they're living on snacks and crap. And half of them are not feeling emotionally great. They're pretty stressed and emotionally fatigued. And actually, a greater 70% of them aren't feeling that physically healthy or a bit tired, a bit sore. I bet you make a different decision.
Yeah.
Now, people think, oh, what would you do on that? Well, it's not what you do right then because that's old data. It's like, what does that inform you to do in time? And with enough of that, then you can say, well, my nurses or my doctors or the healthcare team or even my administrators, they're not sleeping well, they're not eating well, they're not physically active, and they're emotionally exhausted. What can we do now to prevent a cataclysmic event in 6 months' time? I'm not performance managing them, but what you're doing is you're saying, and it's not about the individual. This is the line people have to also understand. If you're going to share this with me, I'm going to give you holistic, wholesale changes that everybody can adapt. Not, Brett, you're not sleeping that well, mate. What are you going to do about it? Well, it's like, shit, I'm in trouble, am I? No, no,
Yeah.
no. It's not a management tool where the performance mindset of an athlete, it's we're always trying to get them to perform. There's no like we're trying to perform manage them out. Because when there's a dip or there's a change in their trajectory, what do all these services do? They come and try and lift them up again.
Yeah.
And they try and find the trends and the algorithms and the data to go, this person's doing really well. What can we learn from this person that we can apply to maybe this population of people?
And the difference is there, like what works for one person is not necessarily going to work for, the population.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And if you take your further application of healthcare, you say you apply it to release nurses specifically, those things affect cognitive precision and clinical judgment.
Yeah.
If those two aren't working, you're in a bit of strife. You're going to have emotional regulation in high stress environments, which ED, ICU, pretty much any environment in a hospital is a high stress environment.
Yeah.
So if you're not understanding that, those events go through the roof. So more sentinel events. You have physical stamina across long shifts. No one's going to be doing those long shifts anymore. No one's going to pick up doubles, which are kind of dangerous anyway, but no one's going to do it. So your costs are going to go up. And with that, there's going to be, from an organizational standpoint, a zero tolerance for error.
Yeah.
So while one side of the pendulum is tipping the negative way, we're expecting a better result the other way. It just doesn't work. But it's asking the question, what if? Now, people say, oh, what if? No, but actually ask yourself, what if you could do that? And what if you gave the power to the person who's the one answering the questions rather than being a dictatorial approach and going, I need to know all the information? The information guides better intervention and better application. It doesn't guide performance management for people. And I think that's the thing we're seeing, especially what's happening in the UK. We're seeing they're telling us how they're sleeping. The bosses don't know that. But as an organization, go, well, the 200 nurses yesterday, most of them slept less than 5 hours. Jesus Christ, there's a lot of fatigued people here. So on this day, did we see our error rate go through the roof? You've now got something to pin data on what's happening in organizations against and go, what are the causative factors that are happening to the people who we're supposed to be protecting and the outcome that we're seeing?
Yeah.
And then get smart about it. And go, okay, well, if we take recent events that's happening around the world, okay, what's that $2 increase in petrol prices doing to the psychology, the stress levels, the physical fatigue, and the work impact and sleep of those staff?
Yeah.
Geez, it's probably maybe doubled some indices. Or what's an interest rate rise? Or what's the possibility of media building up? There's a cyclone or something in the region. Or there's the things that happen to real people in real time aren't looked at in its application to its outcome for work.
Yeah.
Where in the athletic world, wind direction, well, that's going to change, so we'll have to look at that. And the best, if anybody's really interested in that, you go and look at what they do in the States.
Yeah.
If you're a gridiron fan, they analyze to the microsecond. If you run 30 meters in less than 2.8 sec, your 0.1 to a 0.2 difference means $10 million. So they've got it down to a fine science. Imagine if we had that mindset around, if we were able to improve sleep or nutrition or emotional regulation and sustainability and physical health and well-being for staff, what's the return on investment in regards to overall performance, quality of the outcomes we get, but actually the long-term sustainability of the staff? Rather than going, we're going to try and figure it out today, let's hope the best for tomorrow.
I think a lot of businesses are going, oh, we'll just track our sick days or staff turnover, but not realizing that there's other factors that have led up to that point where 100%. If you go, hang on, let's catch this before we get to that sick leave and the staff turnover, what can we put in place? Like, because I do behavior sport as well, and one thing I've noticed in myself is that if I have a bad night's sleep last night, then I'm going to be cranky on edge today. I'm going to make mistakes. But you put that into a business perspective or into healthcare, where, especially in healthcare, where, mistakes can lead to major issues. But if we just went back, hang on, what's the trend happening now that we can put things in place for?
Yeah, and the trends are different depending on the person, depending on the age group, depending on the sector they're working in. But you have to look at it and go, it's not a business around health. It's actually a business around managing people, because people are turning up to work wanting to do the best thing. So it's like, well, they've got the education, they're going to do their job, and we aim to provide them a safe space to do it. We aim. Let's use that term lightly. Yeah. However, when we look at the individual, and you say, if you take anybody who does shift work, is a really good example. So they're doing a certain amount of days, a certain amount of late, a certain amount of nights every month. Okay, so what's their fatigue levels post night duty, or what are they doing? What's their sleep on a day off? Because you think, I finished a run, I might go out on a Friday night. What does a Saturday look different to a Friday in regards to outcomes and people's perception of their own health? And this is the key. It's people's perception of their own health and well-being, not a test. Because as soon as you start asking tests to people, they start going, yeah, what's going on here?
Mm.
And it's fair enough.
Yeah, like
It,
these things have been used in the past as a tool to, you know, end employment, to all these negative
yeah.
outcomes. Of course, they're going to be on the defensive.
Yeah. And if you go, Brett, how'd you sleep last night? Oh, I think I had about 5 hours. Why? I was out late last night.
Mm.
Okay. Well, you told us you're on a day off, but that's fine. Like, but it's understanding data in real time context, not retrospective, and then trying to solve a solution moving forward with not actually know how it works.
Yeah.
And not looking at the individual in an athletic mindset and go, what is everything around their life about? And how do we train, develop, encourage, monitor, load manage that individual so they get the best performance in that day? If we took that mindset to the business or healthcare especially, you'd probably see a significant reduction in hospital induced errors, sick leave, retention issues, cost blowouts. Because it's like, well, it's personalized around me. You've understood my tapestry of life, my shift patterns, my work, and you're asking me general questions like an average person going, how'd you sleep last night? How'd you eat? Well, I ate pretty good. I was a vegetarian last night. It was fantastic.
Mm.
But then you look at those together and you say, well, what could that be in a month's time? Organizations will give their left arm to know what my staff could be looking like in a month's time. Not to say we're going to try and cut costs and manage it, but how can we keep them here? Because they're the greatest asset.
Mm.
And it's like, well, it's not my equipment. It's not the bloody building. It's the people sitting inside doing the work that I'm paying money for that I have no idea why they are not turning up or they're walking out the door.
Yeah.
And if I had an insight and just thinking about it in some kind of athletic performance model, it could be really insightful to me going, do you know what? All my staff's on the rivet here, but I've seen the trend happening over the last 6 weeks. And then you can retrospectively work back and say, well, what has happened in this environment in the last 6 weeks that's about to lead to this happening?
Mm.
And in traditional settings, it's like, oh, there's been a ton of really acute patient acuity's been really high this month. It's a hospital. Shit, it's meant to be. But what has been happening outside of that, just general acuity that we're not paying attention to? How many sick leave calls on late earlies? How many sick leave calls on weekends? What are the trends we're not paying attention to that is really about understanding the human being? Because when we understand the human being and all the facets that go along with them, performance goes through the roof.
Yeah.
And athletes, they've figured that out. They haven't done
I,
anything different. They've just gone, let's focus on the individual and understand them in all facets, and they will perform.
yeah.
With enough training and all the rest, they'll perform. Now, training in healthcare is just the same. I've done fair enough of my own degrees. I've got 4 degrees. I've got 3 masters and MBA, Brett. And the only time I really understood that mindset was doing the MBA. I was sitting in China doing it. I was working full time, and my wife said to me, "If you're going to do it, you got to do it at this level." So we worked out I'd work in the business till 6, 7 o'clock, 8 at night, come home, have a very specific type of meal. It was always healthy. It was always had certain types of foods that kept my brain functioning. And then I'd systematically go down and work till 1 in the morning. Then I'd get up, I'd go to bed, wake up at a certain time, do a certain amount of stuff. So we turned it into like a training regime because
Yeah.
you're investing 100 grand into something, you want that result.
Mm.
But what we think of is like, well, training is just part of a tick box exercise. And if we complete education, it's some creds, but there's what's the value?
Yeah.
And I think that's something people really miss is if you're investing your time and energy in something, you really better think of it like you're an athlete, because then you're going to get the most out of it and you're going to get the most out of yourself. Something we don't do that well outside of sports.
Yeah. I think going back to what you're saying before, in that, it's not just around what's happening for that staff member, it's
Mm.
what's happening outside of them in terms of, disasters in the world, interest rates, whatever. All of these are feeding in, but then you go, hang on, if we're looking at the last 6 weeks of data around sleep and everything, okay, so we've seen a trend that's, improved, like, there's been an increase in errors and sick leave, whatever. But if we go back to 6 weeks, let's look at the news and what was happening around then as well. Is it that you've got the interest rates going up? Is it there's a war started? Was it something happened locally in terms of, like you
Yeah.
said before, a cyclone. All of these things feed into it. It's not just this is work. We need to look at people and going, hang on, outside things also influence them. We need to support not just that person, but their team around them in terms of husband, wife, kids, friends, whatever. What can we do for them?
Well, yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the team around them because that's why they're turning up to the job.
Yeah,
They're not turning up because they love the place. They're
yeah,
not doing it pro bono. They're turning up for money so they can go and enjoy the time with the people that matter the most and more, enjoy their life, whatever they're doing. But you have to think every one of those stresses impact one of the four key pillars in their life, either physical, emotional, nutritional health, or sleep.
yeah,
So if there's an interest rate rise or the war that's currently happening, price of fuel's going up, probably my loan repayments now going up, my insurance is about to go up. I'm
and
thinking,
food and
Jesus
everything
Christ,
else as well.
food as everything else is going up, and the media perpetuates that. It's like, how did fuel just go to jump from $1.65 to $4
Mm,
with now no real justification for it?
yeah,
Well, Jesus Christ, that now my fuel tank's gone from $100 a week to now 350. Where am I going to find that money?
mm,
And so what happens? Like, how many nights are they not sleeping that well, thinking that I've got to pick up an extra this, I've got to pick up an extra that, and then that happens, and then their stress levels rise,
yeah,
and then the stress levels rise, and what do? They snack on junk food and they don't eat properly because they're so worried about finances and just getting by, and because of that, their physical health starts to suffer. So they probably don't go to the gym. They start canceling things that they don't want to. They're not exercising, and they start getting aches and pains because of the stress involved of an external event that impacts their internal mechanisms for work.
yeah,
But even without the external events, just what happens in normal life.
mm,
And you look at, in the trajectory of the workforce, how does a younger workforce results relate to maybe the next decade above and the decade above that? Brand new nurse comes in, 22, 23. I'm sure she wants to work and play hard. Okay,
mm,
so she probably has a different profile in that. Someone who's probably been out maybe 10 years more has a different profile again, different work patterns. And then someone who may be an exec or high has been doing it longer. Theirs is completely different.
yeah,
And it's not a one size fits model by any facet. And anybody thinks, oh, we can just do one thing and it's going to work is absolutely bonkers.
yeah.
And they should have a good look at themselves because, like, you're just setting people up to fail.
Hmm.
So that's how I see the difference between athletes and corporate and healthcare. If we took 1% of the way athletes train and we use it I'll take healthcare because that's the area I'm in.
Yep.
Do you know what, mate? You would see a significant reduction in the things that are happening.
Mm,
People wouldn't be striking, better outcomes at work. People are happier. You probably get more people sign up to degrees and actually complete them.
mm,
You would get less burnout in the first year. It wouldn't be 30%, it could be 15%. And the flow on effect is massive.
yeah,
But if we don't change just grinding through the day and we don't look to other industries and go, how could we implant that into here? What could be the benefit? It's like Bill James and his take on statistics in baseball in the US. Flip the whole industry on its head.
mm,
That statistically, if you put the pieces together by statistics, not by possible value, you can win a lot of ball games, and they nearly took out the World Series
yeah,
for a tenth or was it a fifth of the price of the most expensive team in the league who won it. It's like, geez, and you think, well, if we took half, a 1% of what they're doing now, and we brought it here, what could be the impact? And it's the what if people are going, well, that doesn't make sense. That's why it probably should work
mm,
because everything else we're doing just doesn't bloody work at
yeah.
all.
It's like, we've done this, and the line is, this is just the way it's always been done.
Oh,
But
mate.
that's what's got us to where we are today. We need to say, what can we bring in? What's going to flip that script and move us beyond where we are in this decline? Let's make an improvement.
Yeah, man, it is. This is how we do it,
Yeah,
is a instant killer
yeah,
because it means that no one's really willing to either try and look at a different solution or they've been trying and they're just being squashed in the process. There's a time and a place for change and innovation. But if you're not thinking, because you're talking about people here, not so much process, if we're not looking at how can we make sure our people are always firing on all cylinders because the results we get will be substantial, then we're not really caring. We're just seeing people as cannon fodder. which is an
And I
even
think,
worse concept.
yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, you see it with, like in the NDIS world with support workers. Support workers are often seen as pawns. So when something goes wrong, oh, well, it's your fault. See you later.
Yeah. Yep. It's a blame culture where if you take athletes, for example, they'll take the athlete out of it and go, what was everything around it? Because we've fine-tuned this athlete to perform.
Yeah,
What else was around it that stopped that happening? Now, we're all human, we make mistakes, but they scrutinize on the 1% or 0.5% improvement. We can't even get that to happen in healthcare, and we spend truckloads of money at it because we're
yeah,
going about it completely the wrong way.
yeah.
And you think there has to be a better way to look at this problem for a solution and look elsewhere. Great companies and organizations around the world go to completely abstract industries and go, oh, you built that piece in 10 seconds. We can't build it in a month.
Yeah.
What do you do differently? It has no relation to us, but the process or the tools or the skills or just even the way to look at it can really help us. And I think that's what we're trying to do with the platform of MACH Health in the UK is like, if a hospital knew how its nurses were sleeping, which is one of the biggest killers,
Mm.
I bet they look at how they re-engineer some of the processes to still deliver the service, but actually reduce that. Or do we bring in solutions for them?
Yeah.
And it ebbs and flows with seasons and ages and political issues. It ebbs and flows. But if you're not open to that and you don't look at it in real world terms, I think we're missing a real trick to make a big difference. And I love the athletes model, man, because it's
Yeah.
it's it's simple, it's
Yeah.
predictable, it's trackable, and it's replicatable. And
I
then there's
think
like
that's the
that
thing, though.
performance, and there's high performance, and there's just performance. We should just be struggling. We should just be aiming for. Let's just get to performance level,
Yeah.
and then high performance is a whole different ballgame. But maybe high performance isn't needed, or it's only needed for a couple of specific things.
I think that's the thing, though. Like, athletes and, coaches and everything, every every millimeter is tracked, but in the business world, it's not. And it goes back to what gets tracked, gets measured, and improved.
Yeah, it does, man. Like I was a goalkeeper, right?
Yeah.
Like lucky I'm not now because I'm 4 foot nothing. But back then, I was a bit bigger for my age. But if you just think about the way when we trained, there was everything from the way you caught the ball to the way your fingers were to the way the angle against your elbow to the way they sat against your shoulders.
Mm.
Then if you had to dive, the mechanisms in which you dived and the muscles used and the angles you jump forward and how much it was down to an art to make sure
Yeah.
that that process is replicatable because they know the outcome will be a prevented goal. So you would spend months working on a 3 second maneuver. And you had to repeat this thing thousands upon thousands upon thousands of times so it become automatic because you're teaching your body to do something that is absolutely abnormal.
Yeah.
Now, if you take that to say to healthcare, like doing a simple procedure in healthcare, mixing an antibiotic, how many antibiotics will a nurse mix over their career? Thousands. But in their first 2 years, it's an absolute fumble fest, mate. And you think, well, if we trained people that way and said, by the time you come to your job, your skill acquisition on the basics is so high that you can perform these tasks and we can elevate your skills and knowledge to meet the skill acquisition we're going to bring to you, we better have better performing staff, happier staff, better outcomes. We have reduced in costs, reduced in wastages, reduced in resources. And you think, that's something they're going to do thousands of times every single day, drawing up syringes, changing, dispensing medications. If we took that kind of microscopic look at how we do these things better, I bet we'd find monumental gains in just improving efficiency overall. And who does that better than anybody else? Sports. They got it down to watching you run in a microsecond. Imagine if you did that for someone in the business world, analyzing how they're doing their job in a microsecond, and then looking at going, well, we're going to try and help this person perform better. One, because the results for them are great. The two, the results for us. And that means we can take that and replicate it for other roles across our organizations or our industry so everybody gets elevated together.
Yeah.
Who's willing to take that? Very few. Who's willing to even think about that? Even less.
Do you think that, looking at the nurses in healthcare, do you think that there was a shift when hospitals went from the training hospital type model back to you learn everything in the classroom and you might have, a couple of weeks of placement here and there.
I think there is a shift in regards to the learning modules that go with it and the learning schemas. I think both have positives and both have negatives. And a blended model would probably work the best, where you get more hands-on experience while also learning on the job. The university model, you're pretty much not getting paid for any of your practice, and you can be off for 12 to 14 weeks a year.
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough grind in today's economy.
Yeah.
The other model was you learned a lot on the job, but you may not right then have learned all the theory behind it to maybe make you more efficient in the early years. So they've got their pros and negatives. However, I think the skill acquisition in the hospital trained model, far higher.
Yeah.
10 to 1 at least. Because they get to do these things, they get to see them, they get to understand them, they get to see them in multiple different variations and situations and environments. Where the university model is, you've got 3 weeks. I need you to try and cram everything in your mind without falling apart and not having an event shake you to the core, which normally
It
happens.
will. Yeah.
It will. Or a staff member doesn't appreciate a student and they don't like you, which happens all the bloody time.
Yep.
And you are meant to acquire the skills that guarantees you a job and make sure that you can be successful in your first couple of weeks where you're under the microscope. At whatever point has someone thought, we're setting them up for success? Or are we setting them up for a gradient curve that most people really struggle to do these days? Or, it's okay, stuff it, man. This isn't me. But, and like, that's why 30% leave.
Yeah.
And you think, where have we gone wrong? Is it in the delivery or is it in our ability to program this? So we give these people the best fighting chance to be performing on day one. Imagine if every new graduate come out of university and they've got really good basic skills on how to do the simple stuff that they will have to do at nauseam without making a mistake, like drawing up insulins and medications and dispensing. And I bet their transition into a full-time, competent, confident nurse is in months, not years.
Mm.
Where now we're seeing them just go, stuff this, I don't want it. And if 30% leave in year one and 50, that goes to 50% by year two, what are we even doing? So, it's relative to the current situation. And I've worked with some who are hospital trained. They're just, man, they're lights out. These guys, these ladies are lights out. They've seen it all. They may not know the pharmacology or the physiology behind it or but you know what? If I'm sick, they're looking after me.
Yeah.
Because
I
they've
bet they can
seen
do
it.
it with their eyes closed.
Mate, they can do it with their eyes closed. And that's also the transition that's happening. It's that information exchange from those generations that's really short because they've gone stuff it, I'm out.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one, but it all comes back to what is the model we should be adopting to say, how do we look at other industries and bring it to ours and go, we can get a better understanding about the people who are looking after people so we can sustain them and they're comfortable doing it.
Yeah. And
which
I
is a
think,
challenge.
I think too, like, everyone goes, oh, like I've been speaking to a few people about this podcast, and it's like you need to niche down and go into, you know, community services and that human services, like niche. You need to, talk about that. But then I looked at it and went, but why can't I bring in someone from a different industry who's not part of that, who might have, like, leadership is leadership, and
Yeah.
there's aspects from everything around us that we can draw from. So my hope is that, over this year I can get some sports coaches and, business leaders from, outside of the community services sector. Let's go to corporate and bring some leaders in from there. What are they doing that everyone can include into their work? I've got, next week I'm actually recording with the wellbeing officer from the UK police force.
Nice.
And what are they doing there to support their officers? Let's implement something into the human services industry.
Yeah, I think if whatever we do, if we get kind of blinkered into our niche,
Yeah.
we tend to forget that there's a big, big bad world out there that is doing stuff that's on a crazy level, and they're all kind of doing it in different ways, looking at the same problem. So whether it's in engineering or medicine or community services, or the same problem, everybody are coming with different solutions, but they bring a different lens.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we're not that great at. We say we look at things with a different lens, but do we really? Or do we look at with just a tainted color of the lens we've currently got?
Yeah.
And I probably rub people up the wrong way when I come into organizations or I look at solutions, but I've spent enough time around the world to know, okay, I've seen that not happen in another country. I've seen them do this. That would actually work better here. We thought of this. Do you want to have a phone call with these guys? Like,
Yeah.
and just understand how they got to this process, how they got to this. We can set it up. I know them. Let's set it up and let's ask Peter how he got to this decision or
Yeah.
why they made this change. Well, and then it comes down to the organization willing to go. Let's cut through the BS. Let's cut through. Let's get a bit kind of startup-ish in a way we think about things because these problems cost real money in real time.
Yeah.
It's not it costs a couple $100. This stuff is costing millions
And lives.
and lives and go, we need solutions now. So we should be out there hunting all the time about what is everybody else doing. And we don't have to take everything, but it could at least take our thinking a bit further down the line. Say, oh, well, they did that in India. That's really interesting. If we were able to adopt that process from India and understanding how the Korean lens looks at this same solution, could that be applicable to us? But we have to put our own spin on it. Too many places try and bolt options from other places, and it never works. It's like Toyota mixed with Starbucks. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Who thought of that? Who thought that works in real time? And that's also the great disconnect is between solution integration and real time application.
Yeah.
Because the person trying to do it all is going, who created up this crap?
Yeah.
Who
And then
who created this new form or workflow? Did they ask anybody, or did they just go, "No, this is great. It's a great idea." Well, it doesn't work. It just
and then
doesn't
that
work.
that almost then turns into the Windsor House in America. Sarah Windsor, who was building rooms on rooms and stairways to nowhere, and that's how business becomes if we're not looking at it with different perspectives.
It is, and you always have to take that frontline first approach. If they can't do it, and it's easy for them to do, and it delivers a result, we really need to think whether it's worth adopting, because implementation time, costs. If it doesn't work, the blowouts.
Yeah.
You think, well, and we take it down to the kind of the lowest common denominator. And I don't mean this in a disingenuous way whatsoever, but I always think of maybe the nurses from another country where English may not be her first language, but she can speak good enough English and has troubles communicating. Can she do that? Or can he do that? And if we can get it in a way that they're able to deliver that and it delivers a positive, equitable result, then it's something we should be honestly looking at. Not going, here's a solution, you all got to figure out a way to do it, and we're going to train you to death on it, though we haven't actually run it through in real time in a variety or a multitude of different scenarios and different environments to figure out where the nasty gremlin's hiding.
Yeah.
And it happens in tech integration into hospitals and healthcare all the time. Great solution, but doesn't plug into the one in the hospital, or doesn't talk to this system and doesn't talk to that system. So now we're stuck with it for 10 years at $25 million.
Yeah.
That's what if we did let's see if it linked all together and then run some real people through it and see if it worked.
Yeah.
Or pilot data it and go, we're not getting actually what we need out of it. Can we adapt or do we develop our own? And I think this is where the innovation really sits. If you haven't found a system that meets your needs and you've got the ability, can you re-engineer something that's simple? And that's the beauty of it. If it's taking hours for people to do, something seriously wrong. If it's taking minutes, you're on to a win. And if you look at any process and even the simplest things, they take forever, man.
Yeah.
They really do. You're like, I'm done, and I'm just trying to sign up to Qantas. Like, I'm done. Like, no thanks. I don't want your frequent flyer card. It takes too long. You want to know all this information, but I don't know what I'm getting back from it, and I still can't get your red card. All right, I'll go join Jetstar. I'll go join Virgin or someone else, which is easier.
Yeah. And that system change might not be starting from scratch. That might be, let's start with the closest of what we can get and then build on it from there.
It's exactly right. And the end user at the end of the day is the winner.
Yeah.
If we look at it from like, oh, we've implemented a great project, that's great. A lot of high-powered, high-profile, high-paid people have implemented something, but the guy who is the one actually doing it is going, this is crap, man. Who thought of this and why? Who said yes to this? People that haven't done it in real time or don't understand the pressures. Like, can you do something if someone's screaming in your ear saying they're in pain? I bet that process can't be done. But if you can still do something while you've got 3 or 4 people in your ear, then that means the process or whatever you're implementing is robust enough to take the variables that it's about to go against. And that's what athlete models look at.
Yeah.
That's what they look at. They look at if this individual is being pressured in so many different environments. And AFL does this so well in their simulations of an on-baller and looking at the 4 or 5 players that may be coming at them and the scenarios they're going to have to face and the options they get to choose and what that does, heart rate, stress levels, how many more kilometers they're going to have to run. But if you take that into like real world, you've got a poor doctor, in your example, a poor doctor who's trying to help you is being screened at by 3 other people that aren't related to her, but she's now getting distracted. So how simple is what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
Not very simple at all. So
I think we all have some work to do across industries. You know, this isn't specific to healthcare or community services. This is all industries, all countries. You know, we've all got different things that we're working on. And I think we all need to take a step back for a second and go, where can we bring in other ideas?
100%. 100%. And they're from the most random places you wouldn't imagine. If you're just prepared to go and have a look and dive down a couple of rabbit holes, the solutions are out there for people. But it's also, are you in a position to want to look at the solution and think of the possibility if it worked, not can it work right now? And if it doesn't work right now, I don't want to touch it. Yeah. It's a very nearsighted way to look at it.
I think going back to the NFL, you know, there's been this change in that they've gone, okay, our American-born kickers, we've all got the same level. Let's look elsewhere. And now, you know, 3, 4, whatever it is, teams have now got Australian-born ex-AFL players who are outperforming the American-borns. It's like, let's look at where else we can get these from.
Yeah, they're a really good example of, you know, innovating on the fringe. Yeah. From whether it's stadiums, whether it's through to operations and the facilities they've got and the technology they have in it's big business and it turns over a ton of cash.
Yeah.
But taking your analogy of the punter, you take the guy to Seattle Seahawks, I can't think of his name right now, but he looks to bend the rules all the time.
Yeah.
And he did something, he was last year where he
the double kick.
The double kick.
Yeah.
Now everybody's like, you can't do that. And he's like, yeah, you can.
Yeah,
you can. You just didn't read between the lines. And he played that and he got interviewed about a day later and he walked through the rule. Yeah. And he's like, I knew exactly where I could bend it or innovate from it. And you guys have had it there for 50 odd years.
Yeah.
And I think they look to people to say, what's possible if you try? Now, if it wasn't the rule, he got stung with a 10-yard penalty.
Yeah.
But you know what? That shocked everybody in the NFL. And it's like, but is that really that shocking?
But even like the referees didn't know the rule. The commentators who are ex-players didn't know the rule. Like no one on the field knew what was going on. And they're like, hang on, that's a penalty. But he's like, no, actually it's not.
It's not. And I think they've looked to the AFL kickers, even you take rugby league players or union players as, you know, the offensive line or the defensive line, just because of the mechanics and the way they do things and the structure in which they do it. You know, there's no pads in rugby. And these guys take a pounding.
Yeah.
They go to NFL, it's like, it's a free-for-all for them because they're like, I'm wearing pads, man. I can hit you even harder. Yeah. And like, mate, you didn't play up against Sonny Bill Williams. We did.
Well,
or Jonah Lowe.
Jordan Mailata from Philly Eagles.
He's killing it.
He's killing it.
And he probably doesn't have to work as hard as he did probably playing rugby.
Yeah.
You know, but he does it in short periods. But they analyze the living death out of it to get that maybe 1%.
Yeah.
And the investment in that is huge because they know the financial return on that is even bigger. Yeah. If we did that in other industries and we focus on the person rather than the output, we'd never have to worry about the output again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I think the athlete healthcare model or athlete corporate healthcare model have so many parallels, but so much gap. Yeah. And there's a ton to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, Mark, I've got a tradition on the podcast since you were on last, where the last guest leaves a question for the next person, not knowing who it is. And the
Yep.
question that's been left for you is,
Oh,
from your
geez.
experience, what's one leadership lesson in your space that only really makes sense once you've lived it? And how has that shaped how you show up for your team?
Geez. What's one lesson I've learned that's shaped in my industry that helps me show up for the team? I guess I'd give kudos to my wife in this one.
Yep.
And she brought in a concept for us when we were in Singapore, and it's kind of shaped everything we do now. And it's if opportunities come past you and you say no, the world closes off really quickly. If you say yes, the world is continually opening up for you.
Yep.
And that is one lesson we've learned. Every time an opportunity, a genuine opportunity to do something that doesn't seem natural or doesn't seem normal, that we can fit in, we go, yeah. Networks explode, possibilities change, learning grows.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Life
that
grows.
life grows, learning grows. It took us all around the world to places we'd never thought, but actually expanded our knowledge capacity and emotional capacity of what happens outside of Australia to go, yeah, we're okay. But I think we do things a ton better. And it's bringing that knowledge and experience back to the teams and going, okay, we do this here. They do this here. They do that there. Let's try A, B, and C. And I'd rather you try it and stuff it up than have not tried it all.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of mindset that's allowed us to go, the worst thing you can do is not try. The worst thing you can do is not ask why. And the worst thing you can do is not be involved. And that's how that has shaped everything we do in business. And you know what I'm trying to achieve at MACH Health Breath, and you can see why every single opportunity is like it's a yes, because a yes always leads to another yes, that leads to a no, that leads to another 10 yeses.
Yeah.
And you need to move through that vertical and sideways trajectory to understand your application to the universe and to the world of what you're trying to achieve. I hope that
But
answers
if,
your question,
but
mate.
if you had said no to that first one,
Yeah, mate,
it
you're
always
stuck.
would have been a no.
Yeah, it would have been no. Did you want to go to China? No. Oh. What would have happened if we'd said no to going to China?
Yeah.
I would hate to kind of comprehend what that meant. If I'd said yes to some things, I probably wouldn't have said yes to some things looking back. However, they're all a learning lesson in the journey. And people go, it's, you got to get to the destination. I go, well, you can and you will, but if you haven't learnt on the journey, the destination's dead to you. It's like I'm going on a trip to Thailand, but I've read never a thing about it, and I get there and I hate it. Well, did you not learn along the way? So that's what that lesson has taught us for the
Yeah.
future.
And looking at that, there's things that you can learn boots on the ground that you can't learn in a book, on a blog,
Oh yeah,
wherever.
yeah.
Like
There's
culture, you can read about it, but until you're there, it's like I
yeah,
knew nothing about it.
and you have to put yourselves in those situations that stretch your capacity to the absolute limit. And I mean, we left Singapore at 31 degrees. We landed in Beijing on a Saturday night at -17.
Hmm.
40 something degree swing, and all we have is a couple of jumpers.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't speak Mandarin. None of the apps in China were in English. Didn't have a bank account. We'll turn up to work the next day.
Yeah.
So it's about situations that stretch your comfort level to the absolute maximum, because that's where growth really happens. That's where you learn to adapt and thrive and survive.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Cool, man.
Cool. Thanks for your time today, Mark.
That's all right, Brett. Anytime, mate.
And as usual, if anyone wants to get in contact with Mark or the MACH Health, I'll put the contact details in the show notes. Thanks for your time today, Mark.
Anytime, mate. It's always great to chat and chew the fat and talk about concepts that really challenge the world.
Yeah, awesome. And remember, look after yourself first so you can look after others. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.
Cheers, mate.